Mr. Poley, if you guys don't already know that. I'm here bringing you virtually the lesson for Thursday, October 22nd. Okay, unfortunately, I'm not able to be here today, so that is why I'm recording this video of myself to take the place of your lesson. So I suggest you buckle in for about 25 minutes or so to get this lesson. I'm going to go over a few things with you and then have you do something on your own. Okay, but I'm going to do my best to explain everything, what I want you to do, and how I expect you to do it. Okay, so please use this video so you understand what you're doing. All right, if you'll notice, I am wearing a hat because it is Wednesday. I'm recording this on Wednesday. It's our third day of Virtual Spirit Week, so you guys should all have your hats on. Mine is from Sundance, which is in Utah. I went there a couple of years ago with my fiance and some of his family. We had a nice dinner up in the mountains. It was really great, and I got this hat to remember it. It also helps that this hat is my favorite color. It's a light shade of green, and it's just one of my favorite hats, so that's why I'm wearing it. But I'm recording this video for Thursday's lesson, so that's why I'm also wearing my flannel. Combining 2 days into one, I just have so much school spirit just trying to bust out of me. So, hat and flannel, 2 days in one. Here we go with today's lesson. Okay, I first want to go over the forms, the 5 tax forms that you guys should have filled in at the end of day 13. Okay, if I can shrink myself down here. So now we see these forms behind me. Okay, I wanted to fill these in, make sure you guys have these correct, because we are going to focus on one of them for today's lesson. Okay, but going down the list here, the form that is received in January, there's one of this form for every job that you work, and this form tells you how much you earned and how much you paid in taxes. Okay, this is the form that you need in order to file your taxes. That is the W-2. Okay, that gets sent out at the end of January every year. That's why the IRS does not allow returns before that. Okay, they don't start processing returns until the end of January because that's when they know everybody will have their W-2. You get your W-2 from your employer, which says how much you earned and how much you paid in taxes. Okay, the next form that is also received in January, you don't get this form from your regular employer, but if you had unearned income from interest or other investments, you would get this form. You could also get this form if you were paid as an independent contractor or you were self-employed, and that should be a 1099. Okay, we won't spend too much time going over a 1099 because not everybody gets a 1099. Not everybody uses a 1099. But it's still important to know what that is. The next one, it is completed every April. So you don't get this form, but you have to complete it. Okay, anyone can use this form to report income, and this form is really how you file your taxes. When you are done with this form, that is what determines whether you are owed a refund or owe extra taxes, and that is the 1040. The 1040 is what you fill out to file your taxes. There are a couple different versions of the 1040, but for right now, you just need to know the 1040. Okay, you fill it out in April, or at least by April 15th, that's the deadline, to determine if you owe more taxes or if you get a refund. The next one says it needs to be completed whenever you start a job. So there's no specific date. It just depends when you start a job. You list information about yourself and your family on this form, and it helps determine most accurately how much money should be taken out of your paycheck by your employer. Okay, this one is the W-4. Notice there's a W-2 and a W-4. One, a W-2 you get from your employer to tell you how much you paid in taxes, but the W-4 you fill out for your employer when you start a job to tell them how much taxes they should take from your paycheck. So the W-4, listen up here if you're not right now, the W-4 is what starts your whole tax process. Without first filling out the W-4, you would never earn money, first of all, and then you would never be able to file your taxes. Because the W-4 tells your employer how much taxes should be taken out. Okay, this W-4, I'm putting stars there because this is the one we're working on today. That's what we're going to be focused on. Okay, all our energy will be focused on the W-4 today. Okay, and the last one then also needs to be completed when you start a job. You fill this out to prove that you are eligible to work in the U.S. You prove that you're eligible to work in the U.S. by filling out this form, which is the I-9. That is our last form, the only one left. Okay, the I-9 determines if you're eligible to work in the U.S., or it proves, it verifies that you're eligible. Okay, and when you submit the I-9 and you complete the I-9, you have to provide different forms of identification, of ID. So that could be your social security card, your driver's license, your birth certificate, your passport. Okay, you have to provide one or more of those when you do your I-9. Okay, so these are the 5 forms. They all serve a very important but different purpose. So take the time to remember these, okay? The W-4, again, that is the big one that we're doing today. All right? So, going to bring up a different video here. All right, that worked well. So we're back with my girl Leslie from Gusto. This video is only about a minute long, a little more. There are a few questions embedded in it, which we will talk about as we go, but you also need to answer these questions on your own document to be submitted to me later. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to let Leslie take it away. Oops. All right, here we go, Leslie. Let's hear it. What's a W-4? Oh, and just to preface this, she speaks from the perspective of an employer. Okay, so you'll hear her say, you need your employees to do this. That's why.
Confused about Form W-4? Well, we've got answers.
Good thing. Came to the right place.
Hi, this is Leslie at Gusto, and today we're going to answer your top W-4 questions. What is a W-4? Form W-4 is something that your employees fill out on their first day of work. It's how you know how much income tax they want withheld from their paycheck and what you got to get off to the IRS. How do I know?
Okay, right off the bat, she said your employees, so when you get a job, if you're an employee, you fill this form out on your first day of work. Okay, and it's to tell your employer again, like she said, how much in taxes to withhold from each paycheck and how much needs to be sent to the IRS. Okay, this form does not give any info about your income or your salary. Okay, so this says, which of the following statements about the W-4 is true? Select all that apply. The purpose of this form is to provide employees with reported wage and salary information. No. Okay, that's really what the W-2 does. It's not the W-4. They're not the same. So that is not the purpose of the W-4. This form is given to employees every January. Again, that is the W-2, what I just went over for that chart from last class. Okay, form is given to employees every January. That's the W-2. Then we have this form is given to employees on their first day on the job. Sounds about what Leslie just told us. Okay, your first day of the job, the employee has to fill out the W-4 before they start working. Okay, and then last, the purpose of the form is to let employers know how much money to withhold from an employee's paycheck for taxes. I like that one too. Okay, that was what Leslie and I both just said. The W-4 tells your employers exactly that. How much in taxes should they withhold from each paycheck? Okay, there we go. Make sure those are answered on your document. Take it away, Leslie.
How do I know how much income tax to withhold. The W-4 is a worksheet that your employees fill out that have questions about their life that they know how to answer. When does your team have to fill it out? They have to fill it out on their first day of work, and they can also update it if they have life events that change their answers to the form. Can you help?
That was a good point, she said, right? You fill out the W-4 on your first day of work, but if you have certain life changes, you need to update a W-4. Okay, you need to submit a new version of it. You can't just call somebody or email somebody and say, hey, can you update this for me? You need to submit a new W-4. So that brings us to a question about Miguel. He's been working at his job for 3 years and already filled out a W-4 when he was first hired. This year, he got married and is planning on filing his taxes jointly with his spouse. What should he do? Should he email his HR department that they need to update his W-4? Well, I just said you can't just email or call somebody, so no, he's not going to email his HR department. Would he keep the same information on his W-4? Probably not. If he's married now, that's a big life change. Okay, that changes your filing status. So he should not keep the same information on his W-4. Should he request to fill out a new W-4 from his employer? Yes, I think so. Request to fill it out and actually fill out a new one and then submit that back to them. That is what needs to be done. Definitely do not wait until next April to fill out a W-4 or a new W-4. Do not wait. Okay, that's a big change that needs to be updated now. There we go. Back to you, Leslie.
Can you help your team with it? Technically, you actually can't give them any help with the questions on the form, but as always, you can support them and be their cheerleader as they get it done. Form W-4. So what's on Form W-4? It's going to ask your employees things like their name, address, social security number, marital status, and what their spirit animal is. Just kidding. But in case you're wondering, mine's a panda. A payroll panda.
Okay, so she just mentioned some important info that you need to know in order to be able to fill out your W-4. So you need to include all of the following information on a W-4 form except, so which of these things do we not need to include? Well, I'm pretty sure she mentioned her name and address, or your name and address, the employee's name and address. Did she mention earned income from a previous job? I think we've kind of already answered this before. Does the W-4 have anything to do with your income? No, it doesn't. So you do not need to include your earned income from a previous job, but you do need to include your name and address. So make sure you know those things when you start a job. You also need to include your social security number. So again, make sure you know that. And you need to include your marital status. Okay, if you're single or married. Okay, that changes how much in taxes are withheld. There we go. All right, thanks a lot, Leslie. That was fun, wasn't it? Yes, it sure was. All right, so let's bring up the next thing then, moving right along here. Here we have a fine print. So this is something you've done before. You guys will have this as a Google form to analyze this sample W-4 form here. And then there are questions below. Okay, so I'm first going to read through the questions to make sure we know what we're looking for. Then I'll do my best to explain the different parts of the W-4. Okay? So we're going to read through the questions and then I'll explain the W-4. So another 10 minutes or so here, guys. You're doing great. Thank you for sticking with me for so long. Okay, question 1 says, a W-4 form is given to you by your employer to complete for that specific job. Okay, that's an idea that we've already mentioned a couple times. W-4 is given to you by your employer to complete for that job. Which statement below is true? Okay, one of these statements then is true based on this first sentence here. Okay, question 2 says, what is Maxwell's filing status? So that will be an easy question to answer after we look at the form. Number 3, how much extra money is Maxwell having held from each paycheck? Okay, again, that answer will come right from the form. How much extra money is Maxwell having held from each paycheck? Number 4 says, which of the following is true based on how Maxwell has filled out this W-4? Okay, which of the following is true based on how Maxwell has filled out this W-4? Take a look at that in a bit. Number 5, to fill out his W-4, Maxwell must have needed to know the following. Okay, this follows very nicely right from that last question that we got with Leslie. Okay, you have to choose all the correct. So which of these does he need to know? Number 6, which statement below is true based on this W-4 form? Okay. Actually, guys, 1 second here. Pause. All right, guys, we're back. Sorry about that. I realized on that document that I was reading from, those questions aren't the same as the ones that they're not all the same as the ones you're going to be answering. Okay, so that one that we looked at here, which of the following is true? We don't need to answer that. That's a different question here. Question 4 here for what you guys will need to answer is, does Maxwell have income from does he have other income, not from jobs? Okay, then we have number 5, to fill out his W-4, he must have needed to know the following. So again, that's what we looked at the end of that video with Leslie. Then we have number 7, Maxwell and his spouse anticipate earning $110,000 in combined income during 2020. Given how he's completed this W-4, how many children do Maxwell and his spouse share? Okay, so we'll get into that again on the form. I'll explain that. Number 8, if Maxwell and his spouse were to have another child, but all other aspects of their life stayed the same, which entries on a new W-4 form would he need to change? Okay, you'll be able to answer this after I explain the form above. Number 9, in June, Maxwell's father comes to live in their home and can count as Maxwell's dependent. Okay, so his father's coming to live with him, and now he is one of Maxwell's dependents. So what steps does Maxwell need to take? Okay, and again, you'll be able to answer this after we explain the form above. Then number 10, when Maxwell completes this W-4, who should he submit it to? Okay, keep in mind who gives him the W-4 to complete. Okay, that's who he should return it to. Okay? And then the last question is just summarizing what you learned from all this. So after you do questions 1 through 10 and feel like you have a good grasp on it, I want you to tell me then, why is it extremely important to read the fine print of your W-4? Okay? You guys should agree, I would hope, like, look at this. There's a lot of print on here. Okay? And some of it is quite fine. So let's take a minute now to go through these different sections here. Okay? Bring me back over here just so I'm not totally gone. All right? So this W-4, this is the employee's withholding certificate. Again, you complete this form so your employer can withhold the correct federal income tax from your pay. Okay? And you give the W-4 form to your employer when it is done. There's some hints right there. Okay? You complete this form so your employer can withhold the correct amount of taxes, and you give the form to your employer when it's done. Okay, I'm going to show you right now that at the bottom of the W-4 is where you will find the employer. So Maxwell is now starting a job for Big City Office Furniture. Okay? That is his employer. That is who is providing this form to Maxwell. And that is then who Maxwell needs to submit this back to once he has filled it out. Okay? Big City Office Furniture. All right, but back up to the top. Step 1. get my picture out of here. Am I right? Okay, step 1 is your personal information. Okay, so first and last name, of course. You need to tell your company who you are. First and last name, and with that comes your social security number. Okay, that is part of your identification as a citizen, so that it needs to be included on your W-4. So that means you need to know your social security number. Okay, your first and last name and your social security number, as well as your address. Okay, that is first and foremost the information that needs to be entered onto your W-4. Then this last little section here is your filing status. So are you single or married but filing separately? Are you married and filing jointly? Okay, because even though you're married, you can still file separately. Some people choose to, some people file together with their spouse. And then, are you the head of the household? Okay, that says check only if you're unmarried and pay more than half the cost of keeping up a home. Okay, that would make you the head of the household. Okay, I'm currently the head of my household. Look at that. All right, then we move on. It says complete steps 2 to 4 only if they apply to you. So you may not need to complete steps 2 through 4. Okay, step 2 you complete if you have multiple jobs or your spouse works. So that's when you do step 2. Okay, so not everybody needs to do step 2. You do step 3 if you need to claim dependents. Okay, and that's if your income will be $200,000 or less. So you fill this out if your income will be $200,000 or less. So quite a few people fall under that amount, myself included. Okay, so you multiply the number of qualifying children under age 17 by 2,000. So however many children you have under the age of 17, they would be claimed as your dependents. You multiply them, the number of children, by 2,000. And that gives you this answer here. So think, what did this 2,000 need to be multiplied by to give you 4,000? So whatever that answer is, that's how many children Maxwell and his spouse have. Okay? You could also take this amount here, 4,000, do the opposite, work backwards, divide that by 2,000, again, to get the number of children. Okay? If he had other dependents, he would multiply the number of other dependents by 500, and that would be listed here. So for example, hint, hint, if a parent would come to live with Maxwell, he would have to enter an amount here because they would be an other dependent. Okay? A parent, an elderly grandparent, if they come to live with you, they could be claimed as a dependent, and however many of them there are, multiply them by 500. Okay, so Maxwell would possibly need to submit a new W-4 and add on 500 here for his father to live with him. Okay, because his father would be claimed as a dependent. Step 4, we have other adjustments. Again, this step is optional. Not everybody needs to complete step 4. If you have other income that is not from jobs, so that could be from stocks or other investments or a savings account that earns interest. Okay, that is where you would list, this is where you would list other income. So given that this is blank on Maxwell's form, what does that mean? Does he have other income? Doesn't really look like it, right? Other deductions, if you expect to claim deductions other than the standard deduction amount, and you want to reduce your withholding, you want to reduce how much is taken out of your paycheck, you would fill in 4B. Okay, that's if you expect to claim other deductions, not from this, other than the standard deduction. So it doesn't look like he has other deductions. But the last part here, the extra withholding. Enter any additional tax you want withheld from each pay period. So the extra withholding, does Maxwell want extra money taken out of his paychecks? Well, there's an amount listed there. So I would say yes, he wants an extra amount withheld. Okay? So those are the steps, the different sections there. There's a little more to each of them. We could, of course, dive into each of them more. But I think that should be enough to get you through the questions down below. Okay, but step 5, possibly the most important step on here, says under penalties of perjury, I declare that this certificate, to the best of my knowledge and belief, is true, correct, and complete. Okay, by signing this, you are telling the IRS, the federal government, that you completed this form as accurately as you could. Okay, and then of course you have to date it. And if you'll notice, he is dating this the same day it matches his first date of employment. So the date he's saying he's starting matches when his employer is saying he's starting. So that's important. Okay? You know it's legit then. All right? So that is the W-4 in all its glory. Okay? And when you are done completing this form, when you start a job, that tells your employer again how much in taxes to withhold from you. All right? So I hope you followed along with me. I hope that gave you a good base of knowledge to be able to answer these questions. Okay? All the answers for these questions are within this form here. So take your time, listen to how I explain things, and do your best with it. Okay? I'm not here today, but I have high hopes always. I have big expectations for you guys. And I know you will meet those expectations and surpass them. Okay? So do your best with this. Make me proud. And I look forward to seeing you on Monday. Okay? Everybody have a light and fresh day and enjoy. Mr. Poley is out of here.